3,000 people living in Australia from Eritrea. The Northeast African country's only diplomatic presence in Australia is a consulate in Melbourne. It's through this consulate that members of the Eritrean community say they're being forced to pay a 2% tax on their incomes, even if they're only on Centrelink benefits. David, who wishes not to be identified, migrated to Australia in 2009. He's shown SBS receipts from the consulate indicating he's been paying the tax for years.
When I came here, I want to renew my passport because...
When I came here, I wanted to renew my passport because I was still a skilled migrant. So I went there and my passport had expired, and I said I need to extend it because I wanted to travel. So I went to the consulate and they asked me to pay 2%.
David says the consulate refuses to deal with any Eritrean-born person who doesn't provide proof of their income level and then begins paying the tax.
They get you once you come to the consulate and...
They get you once you come to the consulate and you are requesting for a service. And other times they'll ask you if you've previously paid the 2% tax, and you need to provide them with previous payment. They get to know you or catch you when you go to the consulate.
They get to know you or they catch you once you go to the consulate.
And David says that if he didn't pay the tax, he wouldn't be able to visit close family members in Eritrea.
Problem is if I don't pay 2%.
The problem is if I don't pay 2%, I'm not going to get any services either from the consulate or the government.
Eritrea has been governed since independence in 1993 by the People's Front for Democracy and Justice. The government has been widely condemned by human rights groups, and tens of thousands of Eritrean citizens have fled in recent years as refugees. Munir Abdulhai, who also lives in Melbourne, describes himself as the Australian spokesman for the opposition group, the Eritrean National Council for Democratic Change. He also claims if the 2% tax is not paid through the consulate, there are serious repercussions for those back home.
They hold ransom or they hold someone back home. Anybody who got a son or child or father, they are imprisoned. I know some people who got already their relatives being imprisoned to just keep these people who are outside, to keep them quiet in Australia, yeah.
And Mr. Abdulhai claims the consulate even taxes people on Centrelink benefits.
You tell them I'm a pensioner. I have known some people that have paid this fund, 2%. They tell them even if you don't have enough income, they tell them, all right, pay this, all right. If they say my income is so low or this or that, they will tell them as well have you paid for the function that we had, festival that we had here. Indirectly, they tell them to, pay it. So in any case, whether it's donated or it's imposed anyway.
The United Nations Security Council banned the so-called diaspora tax collected by Eritrean authorities in a resolution passed in 2011. The Security Council accused the Eritrean government of undermining peace and reconciliation in the Horn of Africa by providing support to armed groups such as Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda affiliate. The Council called on all UN members, including Australia, to hold accountable, consistent with international law, any individuals acting on behalf of the Eritrean government who collect the diaspora tax. Yassine Omar Mahmoud is the head of consular affairs at the Eritrean consulate in Melbourne, that is, Eritrea's top diplomat in Australia. He freely admits that the 2% payment is sought from Eritreans in Australia.
We don't call it a tax, we call it a recovery. A recovery means that because Eritrea actually passed through a lot of issues, problems and war, and when we come to actually starting or building the country, there's actually below zero. And in order to have that independence, to get that independence, there's a lot of sacrifice. People actually get lost, a lot of their families and a lot of problems. And what's happening, this is that a kind of gratitude towards the country, everyone willing to contribute towards building the country.
And Mr. Mahmoud, who disputes the UN allegations against the Eritrean government, denies that the payments are compulsory.
Actually, there is no forced payment. It is a voluntary. Whenever they wanted any services that maybe in Eritrea, that's the time when they will start paying. And there is no force for that. It's a voluntary.
In a statement to SBS, Foreign Minister Julie Bishop says the Australian government condemns any efforts by Eritrea to impose a tax on the Eritrean diaspora, whether in Australia or internationally. She says Australia formally instructed the Eritrean consulate to suspend collection of any such tax in June 2011. But Yassin Omar Mahmoud says he hasn't seen any such communication from the Australian government.
Until it is officially to us, I'm not going to comment on that. Until it is officially told us, we are being told about this issue that you're just raising, we will be then commenting on that.
In May last year, Canada's Foreign Minister, John Baird, expelled Eritrea's consul in Toronto after he was accused of ignoring repeated warnings to stop imposing the diaspora tax.
I think declaring the Consul General persona non grata is a significant diplomatic step which underlines our significant concerns with the activities that are inconsistent with his diplomatic role.
David and other members of the Eritrean community in Australia say they'd like to see similar action by Julie Bishop. Meanwhile, he's asked for his identity to be hidden because of the dangers of speaking out about the Eritrean government and the tax it imposes, even in Australia.
It's not safe for me just now because I'm exposing the government.
It's not safe for me right now because I am exposing the government and the truth of what is happening in Australia. If my face is identified, they can easily persecute my family. They can persecute my mum and my brothers, which is not safe.
My brothers, which is not safe.
Julie Bishop's statement says the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade has asked federal, state and territory law enforcement authorities to inform it of any evidence that attempts have been made to collect the diaspora tax in Australia. She says the department is not aware of this practice currently occurring.